Hello, welcome. It's the Azure Functions event where we're going to discover OpenAPI and Power Apps. I'm happy you're here to join us. We're on Learn TV, so please join us on Learn TV at Microsoft on the Docs channel. I'm actually wearing my Learn shirt. I'm really happy that you're here. We're being joined from people all over. We've got a little over 800 people joining us, and we've got a lot of my friends on my team and other teams that are going to be talking to us about OpenAPI and functions and API development and Power Apps. Ton of stuff, and I'm sure you're gonna have some questions, so please join us in the chat and ask your questions there. We've got a great group of moderators that'll be there to answer the questions. If they can't, they're gonna push them to us, and we'll do our best to answer that. I'm going to be joined shortly here by April Dunham. She's on my team. She's a senior cloud advocate on the Power Apps team. If you know anything about Power Apps, April is a who's who of Power Apps, and she's got a great YouTube channel with a lot of great learnings, and she's going to kick us off with a really great keynote on what she's been doing and show us a good example of how you can kind of enable your Power Apps with OpenAPI and some of the custom connectors and stuff that you can do. So I want to bring in April and have her join us. Hey, April, how are you doing?
Hey, pretty good, Shane. How about you?
Doing okay. It's a little late on the East Coast here for me, getting towards the end of my day. I know that you're right there in the middle of the country and probably wrapping up after dinner. So I see the title here. You're going to custom integrate and extend our apps with functions and Power Apps. So I'm going to let you kick us off here, and I'm going to sit back and kind of watch the questions come through and see how you're going.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I have a really long title, I realized, for this. So customize, integrate, and extend applications with OpenAPI, Azure Functions, and Power Apps. I don't think I can have made it any longer. But really what I want to talk about is how we can take the APIs and the Azure Functions that you're already using and unlock even more possibility by integrating that with the Power Platform. So that's what we're going to talk about. And to level set here, I want to talk about the kind of current landscape we have for application development. We have a couple unique challenges and then also opportunities from those challenges. So one of the things we're seeing now is just an overwhelming demand for new application development that we have here. So about estimates are, you probably maybe heard these metrics in a few sessions and stuff that you watched here, but about 500 million new applications are going to be built in the next 5 years, which is actually about more than all the apps built in the last 40 years. So just an astronomical demand that we have here for new applications that need to be built, which is about 5 times faster than what current than what currently can be delivered by IT departments here. So couple that with the fact, though, that we have about 80% of organizations that are saying they're struggling to find technical talent to build these applications. So we have all these apps that need to be built and just not enough people and time to build them. So it's really unique times that we're in right now. So what are some of the things that we can do? What's the opportunity, though, that can arise from the challenges and what we're facing here with the app development need? Well, that's where low-code technology can really help us bridge that gap. So one of the things we're estimating is about 65% of enterprise application development will be in the low-code space by 2024, which is just 3 years from now. So it's something that has already taken off quite a bit, low-code technology, and it's just going to keep being used really exponentially over the past next few years here to help bridge the need for the application development. And when we talk about low-code tools, of course, when we're talking with Microsoft products, we're talking about the Power Platform. That is our low-code suite of technology that spans across Microsoft 365, Azure, and all of that. And just to level set, what exactly is the Power Platform and what low-code tools does it offer? We have 4 main things that we can use that kind of vary in the scope of really creating holistic business applications here. So we have Power BI, which probably a lot of us have heard of, really commonly used enterprise orgs, the oldest one of the Power Platform for creating dashboards and reporting. We have Power Automate, which really is almost like the glue. That is our workflow automation tool for the Power Platform. It can be used across all of the tools, across SharePoint and Dynamics and Azure, to automate almost anything that you can think of. And some of the new technology that we're using and integrating with Power Automate also allows us to do robotic process automation with Power Automate Desktop, which you might have heard. I think it was announced at Build or maybe Ignite that is included in Windows now for you. Then we have Power Virtual Agents. That is a tool that lets us create low-code chatbots within the Power Platform. And that's the newest tool there in the Power Platform toolset. And then what we're really going to be focusing on today is Power Apps. That is the lightweight, rapid application development tool for the Power Platform that lets us build applications without having to know traditional programming languages. One of the cool things, though, that we're talking about here at the Power Platform is it really spans, why we call it a low-code platform. It spans across everything. It can truly be a no-code experience with kind of some of the drag and drop experience, but it can be low-code by using Excel-like formulas, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. But why we're here today is it can be code-first developed too. We have professional development and extensibility across this so that we can integrate our ProDev tool sets and skills into the Power Platform to extend it and just make it even more powerful. And if we look here, so those are the general tools of the Power Platform that we can utilize, but it all shares a few things in common. So one is Dataverse. That is the Power Platform's kind of database and data model that it uses to store the data. Now we can use this as the data source, but it's what it all runs off of is Dataverse. And then we have AI Builder. So this is a low-code way of adding in AI into your applications. We have some pre-built models that you can utilize to do things like object detection and form processing and prediction and category classification. And then what we're going to be focusing on today, you'll see the last thing that they all share is data connectors. These are those building blocks that allow us to connect services into the Power Platform. And we'll talk way more about that here in a second. Now, we talked about this huge need for application development, and low-code technology can really help us bridge that, and the Power Platform specifically can help us. So in essence, what the Power Platform does is make low-code transformation a team sport because it can handle the no-code, low-code, and code-first scenarios. So when we talk about the concept of making low-code development a team sport, that's really something I want to dive deeper on, and that has a name, and we call that fusion development. So what fusion development is it's really just the idea of how low-code devs, IT pros, and pro devs can work together to really solve a business problem and create software faster. So it really allows everyone, as you're seeing here in this awesome visual that Nitya created, you can allow everyone in the team to contribute in their own comfort zone. So why a citizen dev who might not have traditional programming language background skills, they can identify a business problem and they can bring that to a Fusion team to help solve it. So with the Fusion team containing IT pros and pro devs, the IT pros and pro devs can kind of identify the admin and the data needs and security layer and all of that, while the citizen devs can more focus on the business requirements and building the app and the user experience with Power Apps, since it's a drag and drop, easy to use interface that it offers. So, and just like any dev team, with a Fusion dev team, you can have regular check-ins and identify blockers and evaluate progress. So it's really works like a traditional dev team, except you're able to bring in people that wouldn't be in a traditional dev team, like the citizen developers, to be able to help augment the process. So why would you want to do this, right? Fusion development has so many great benefits. And this is something that we're seeing that's really is rising. About 84% of companies right now already have Fusion teams. So this concept is not new. And there's a reason why so many companies have Fusion development teams. I mean, obviously, the biggest one, it just helps you build apps faster and solve business problems faster. So being able to take the business users who are closest and the most knowledgeable about the business needs and the processes, and giving them the ability to express those needs instantly in say Power Apps to create an application is huge. It exponentially increases how fast you can build applications. And meanwhile, that's freeing up professional developers to be able to come in and leverage their skills best to fill in any gaps in the more complex or advanced requirements that you have in the process. So this saves obviously a ton of time. It allows the app building process to be really iterative. So, more than really maybe any other agile processes almost, with, the possibility of several iterations a day in the process here. So that's really the benefit and why you should be thinking about embracing this Fusion development model. And with low code, as I feel like I'm beating the horse here, but I mean, it's really extends your development potential. The average cost, what we kind of estimate to develop an app, is about 70% less if you use that, say, with Power Apps and the Power Platform than with traditional coding methods. So there's so much potential and so many projects that might have been kind of constrained by limited developer resources that we can tackle and transform by embracing Fusion development teams and leveraging the Power Platform. So kind of how this works in action here, we saw like how the process works, but we can have a citizen developer building a front end in Power Apps, how they want to be able to interact with the application that they need to be built. They can send that off to a pro dev. They can talk back and forth. The ProDev can add custom functionality, whether it's integrating with external services or internal services via APIs, whether it's maybe adding in additional functionality that the app doesn't need or that doesn't have and it needs, like custom controls and things like that. And then the end user, obviously, which oftentimes is the citizen dev itself, is also the end user. They can be involved in that feedback loop. And it's just a really collaborative process to make application development faster. So we've kind of level set here, and we've talked about what low code is, why it's important, why Fusion development teams are important. Now let's dive a little bit deeper on the Power Platform itself, and particularly Power Apps, and see what that looks like from an application development side of things. So with Power Apps, it's really a natural integration point for Fusion dev teams because that's what enables you to build web and mobile applications quickly. One of the things I love about Power Apps, being a traditional developer myself, is it was always a pain having to accommodate for all the different areas where you might use the app, whether it's the web or the mobile, and iOS, Android. With Power Apps, you build the application once, and it works across all of those platforms. You don't have to worry about tailoring it to those different platforms. And it works seamlessly in Microsoft 365 and Dynamics. And one of the other great things is because it is within Microsoft 365, we can easily add in guardrails and have enterprise-grade governance and security for the apps we built. We don't really have to worry so much about building that in. That's just baked into the product. And then the big one, which is what we're talking about today, is the ability to easily connect to your data. This is one of the main reasons why building in Power Apps is so fast and so efficient. We have over 500 pre-built connectors, which I'll explain a little bit more what connectors are here in a second, that allow us to connect to a variety of services easily and securely. And then the AI that we were talking about with AI Builder, being able to add that intelligence easily into your app to do things like barcode scanning, object recognition, mixed reality. Those just went generally available in Power Apps as well. So we can do things in augmented and mixed reality. And then, of course, the pro development side of things, being able to have really what we call that no cliffs experience of being able to do something drag and drop or adding in your ProDev tools. So how does Power Apps actually work, though? Because we mentioned it's a low code platform. So that really implies that there is some kind of code involved in what's going on behind the scenes here. So when we talk about it being a low code platform, obviously we just mean it significantly reduces the amount of code needed compared to traditional programming methods. And the low code capability that we can do in Power Apps is done through something called PowerFX. And that is the Power Apps Canvas app specific declarative language. And it's based off of Microsoft Excel, actually. So I've always said ever since I first started using Power Apps that really it's kind of like if Excel and PowerPoint had a baby, that would be Power Apps. The user experience and being able to build out the UI of the app itself is very PowerPoint-like. It's really that simple. You drag and drop your controls or your shapes on there and you can seamlessly build out the UI. But the logic layer is very, very much Excel-like, kind of as you're seeing here. Some functions that you've probably used in Excel formulas, like the right and the find and the substitute and length, all of those translate and can be used in Power Apps itself. So it's really, if you know Excel, it's that same kind of declarative-based language that we can use here in Power Apps. So the model for that, since it is based on Excel, means it's an imperative model that we use for this. Or traditional app is imperative. This is declarative. So it is a little bit different model if you come from a traditional development background. But if, like I said, if you use Excel, it's really easy to use. And one of the things you'll see is being declarative, you're able to type in a formula and it's automatically evaluating that formula here as soon as I type something into that input. So the screenshot's cool, but it's probably best to kind of show you in action what can Power Apps do. I want to walk through how easy it is to create an application from scratch and how PowerFX works. So let's switch over to Power Apps here. Now, Power Apps is part of Microsoft 365. So you can go to make.powerapps.com to get to that, or click the Power Apps icon in the ribbon there. So once you get there, you'll be taken to the homepage of the Power Apps portal. And one of the easiest ways to get started, just to see how fast you can build an app in Power Apps, is to use one of these start from data options. So as you can see, we're able to actually point this to where the data is stored that we want to create an app from. And it will actually create a fully functioning application for us based off of the data that we say we want to use. So in my case, I have an Excel sheet, and that's what I want to base this off of. So I'm going to click this Start from Data Excel. And it's going to pop open a dialog here where I can choose the Excel spreadsheet that has the data that I want to use inside of my application. So it can work on OneDrive or SharePoint, and it can find Excel files on there. And one of the ones I have is this flooring inventory. So I want to be able to see the different flooring types I have and check the status and how many are in inventory. Now I can have multiple tables in Excel. So it's going to list all the tables that I have available, and I can choose the one that I want to connect to. And just click connect, and it's going to do all of its magic behind the scenes and create a 3-screen application for me to see all of the flooring details, to view it, and to add and edit flooring details. So you see, all I did was say, pull data from this Excel sheet. And if I play the app here, we see now I can see all the different types of flooring that we have. I can click on one of these. I can see the details about that specific item. I can delete, edit, and if I go back, I can add a brand new item here, even with image support. So that's how fast. This is truly the no-code approach that we can take here. If that's all we needed was to be able to just view a list of data and have it work seamlessly on the desktop or the mobile and see the details and add, then we have a fully functioning app. But of course, we can take it a step further and start integrating some of that low-code PowerFX programming language. So if I look at the app that was generated here, I have this gallery, which is what this is called, is how we just display a list of tabular data within our Power Apps applications. What if I wanted to see some additional information? So one of the things that we have in these flooring samples is we have a rating. So if I want to show maybe visually on this home screen what that rating is, maybe I want to have a thumbs up if the rating is above a 3 and a thumbs down if it's below a 3. So I can use PowerFX for that. So I can do an insert, and we have some pre-built icons that we can use. So I can look through here and I can find the thumbs up, but I'm just going to put in this one because I can dynamically change the icon with this icon property. So I can say icon thumbs up, for example. So there that is. But how do I do that logic where if the rating is above a 3, it's thumbs up, and if it's below, a thumbs down? Well, we can do some PowerFX here on the icon property. So I'm going to use that Excel-like expression of PowerFX, and I'm going to do an if statement. I'm going to say if this item dot customer rating is greater than or equal to 3, then I want to show icon thumbs up. Otherwise, I want to show icon thumbs down. And you see, as soon as I do that, this is updated. I see most of these are thumbs up, but this one is apparently below a 3 and it's a thumbs down. And that's just a really simple example of how Excel-like and how the PowerFX formula language kind of works here in the Power Platform in Power Apps. Another thing I did want to show is just how easy it is to be able to take something that, say, is a number field. So that rating, if I were to add in a label here and change that to customer rating, I just wanted to show how that's actually a string in my Excel, right? It's just a string with a number. What if I wanted to have that be like a star rating, right? Well, Power Apps is smart enough to know if I go to add an input here, we have an input called a rating input. I can put that on the screen, and that gives the traditional star rating that you would expect from something like this. And on its default value, I can use that declarative logic, and I can say if this point that default value to this item dot customer rating. So that's automatically just going to know that, okay, set whatever that string is, fill in this star control accordingly based off of what the number rating is. So that's why it's just so easy to work with and easy to use here. Okay, so now that we've seen a little bit and get a good understanding of how Power Apps works and how fast it is to build an app, let's go back and let's dive into more of that code first extensibility side of things. And before I dive into this, we did do a poll on here where I was trying to see like how many people, what are you code first devs or are you more citizen low code developers? And it looks like the majority of you are code first devs. So, which is good because you're going to be focusing on a lot of that extensibility. So thanks for participating in that poll there on Learn TV. Okay, so code first extensibility. Let's see how we can get a little deeper and explore some of the points that are available there for the Power Platform. Now, Power Apps specifically, we've touched on a couple of these already, but this shows a great overview of just everything that's possible from an integration standpoint with Power Apps. So we have integrations into the physical and the digital world with things like IoT Edge and Hub. We have those mixed reality components that I mentioned earlier, geospatial mapping, and even HoloLens support. Then we have the AI intelligence solutions integrations we can add with either the out-of-the-box AI builder, those pre-built models, or maybe the pre-built models don't do what you want. You need something a little bit more advanced or more tailored. Then we can integrate with Azure Cognitive Services easily within the Power Platform. And then the own Power Platform tools like Power BI for analytics and reporting and Power Virtual Agents for chatbots and that robotic process automation functionality that's offered through Power Automate. And then when we talk about additional integrations, we have the ability to integrate with GitHub so that we can back up our code and we can have true application lifecycle management. We can integrate with Microsoft Teams. This is a great way to integrate the apps that we build in Power Apps and have that work and be hosted inside of Microsoft Teams with something called Dataverse for Teams. It has something as well called Power Apps portals. So Power Apps, one thing to know about how they work is they're really intended to be worked and utilized behind the firewall within your Microsoft 365 tenant for the people in your company. What if you need some kind of public-facing anonymous portal that people can get to, but you want to build it using some lower code technology like the Power Platform? We have Power Apps portals that is really just for that use case there. Of course, we have the connectors that we've talked about so far, over 500 of those. And then API management is another integration point that we're really going to touch on today. But one of the things that really makes leveraging the Power Platform so appealing from a ProDev standpoint is that you really don't have to learn any new tools. The developer tooling that Power Apps utilizes shares some common frameworks like React. So you can use that tooling that you're already familiar with, and you can use stuff like VS Code and Visual Studio Code to develop and extend Power Apps in the Power Platform. If you know TypeScript, for example, we have something called the Power Apps Component Framework. So why Power Apps has tons of default controls that you can add in to be able to build your application. There might be a very niche or special control that you need to be able to add to it. Like maybe you need a special mapping control or whatever it might be, or special rating control. We can use TypeScript in the Power Apps Component Framework to build those controls and add those into the applications that we build. And then, of course, integrating with APIs and command line tooling. So it can really make it feel like, you know, a true application development experience with all of the ProDev extensions that we offer. With the command line tooling, there's recently been a ton of work with that to kind of consolidate what we have and make it even more streamlined. So with the Power Apps CLI, we can debug our apps, we can have solutions, package those up, do our dev pipelines. We can even export the code from the Canvas application. So that's flooring sample, that app that we just built in Power Apps. We can actually run the CLI tooling and unpack that code and edit it in Visual Studio. So if we didn't want to open it up in the Power Apps Canvas apps experience, maybe we needed to make a mass change, like changing the logo in the application throughout 50 screens or some kind of text, we can do that easily with the pack and unpack capability that the Power Apps CLI gives us. So lots of ability to integrate and extend there. And then if we take it even further and we talk about Dataverse, because we briefly talked about that there in the beginning, but that is a database specifically for the Power Platform that we can use if we want to. So, and if we choose to use that and store our data inside of Dataverse, that itself has an API that we can call and work with. So it has standard data operations. It supports transactional and bulk operations. We can do automated deployments and solutioning, custom messages, and of course, integrate with the API within any other applications we're building to pull data in and put data into Dataverse in the underlying database of the Power Platform. And when we're talking about Dataverse, it actually runs on Azure itself. So when we're talking about how it works, so again, that's what the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, Virtual Agents, and Power BI use and are hosted on. But it uses a load balancer behind the scenes to scale the requests across several compute services. So has for handling OData request, Azure Jobs for asynchronous, all of that stuff. And then it supports a variety of storage as well. So we can pull data into the Dataverse and put it out. And it supports everything from relational data like SQL to blob storage for image and files to Cosmos, non-relational type data, and data lake for big data. So all of that is supported within Dataverse. And of course, the extending it with things like Azure Functions, Event Hubs, Service Bus, Kubernetes, and all of that. Now, another thing that it offers to make it feel like a true, application development tool here is something called environment variables. And really, that's just the Power Platform's way of giving us the ability to have a config file when we're packaging up the solutions that we built in the Power Platform. So we can migrate these application configurations, and we can use configurable input parameters here inside of all of our different types of Power Apps or our Power Automate workflows that we built. And we can update values without having to modify the components directly. So we can have that config file and make a seamless experience for moving our applications from dev, test, or prod and into other tenants. And then when we're talking about the application lifecycle here, there's support for the entire process, from building using Visual Studio Code or VS Code, to testing and validation using the command line tooling that we talked about, to being able to check in your source control with continued automated deployments and deploying inside of your organization and distributing across. So it does support the lifecycle like we would expect from enterprise-grade solutions that we're building. Okay, so did a lot of talking. Now that we kind of understand everything that we can do, from command line tooling to custom controls and just what's possible from extending Power Apps, let's get into really the heart of what I wanted to talk about, and that's how we can integrate with APIs. Okay, so when we talk about integrating with APIs, that is done through something called connectors. Connectors are what allows the Power Platform to integrate with other services. So it's just a wrapper around an API used to communicate between the service and the Power Platform. And as we mentioned before, there are over 500 built-in connectors right now. So these connectors, and new ones are added each month. So there's just a blog article the other day about, I believe, 5 more new connectors added. So these can be connectors to be able to consume information from Microsoft services like SharePoint and OneDrive, Dynamics, and Azure, as well as third-party services like Salesforce, Box, WordPress, MailChimp, just to name a few. But beyond this, and where the real power comes in, is the ability to create custom connectors and even connect to on-prem data with the on-prem data gateway that you can set up. So we're actually able to create our own custom connectors to other APIs, Azure Functions, stuff like that, and be able to consume that inside of Power Apps, Power Automate, and it works across all of those different Power Platform products. So you build it once, one connector, and it can be used in a Power Automate flow, in a Power Apps Canvas app, or even Power Virtual Agents. So why use these custom connectors? Well, many reasons. It's because it provides the building block for citizen developers to be able to consume that data. It unlocks data silos. You can use it to augment and extend legacy applications. So if there's something that you need to add to a legacy app that's just going to take too much time, or you've just been in the backlog forever and you don't have time for it, you can expose your API via a custom connector to the Power Platform and create a simple Canvas application to handle that piece of the functionality. And again, this works with Logic Apps, Power Automate, and Power Apps. You build it once, and you can use it across all of those. When we talk about connectors, it is important to understand the difference between a connector and a connection. The connector is what knows about the web API's host and the operation details. The connection, on the other hand, is what we use to know the credentials and has a reference to the connector that facilitates the communication with the web API. So you create the connector itself, and then the person creating the citizen dev, creating the Power Apps application, per se, would create a connection to your connector to handle the credentials and the authentication. And it looks another poll that we had. I noticed, thanks for participating in that on Learn there. Most attendees, looks like you've used Power Platform, so that's great. So I'm glad that you are using it or plan on using it. So glad to hear. Custom connectors now. So now we know why we would use them. How do you actually create one? So that's what we're going to get into next. There are a few different ways. Power Apps offers kind of an in, out-of-the-box experience there to be able to build those, where you can manually point it to your endpoints and all that, and your actions and your security and stuff. But the easiest way by far is by integrating that with OpenAPI and importing via an OpenAPI file, URL, or even Azure API, which we'll talk about in a second. So OpenAPI, what exactly is that? Just to level set. So OpenAPI, formerly known as Swagger, is just an API description format for REST APIs. It's a contract for those. gives the consuming app what it needs to understand and communicates with the APIs without really having to know where it's located and all of that. So when using that OpenAPI document to describe the web API, it gives the ability for the consumer to understand and communicate with that with really minimal effort. And a custom connector can be created for any web API as long as it's properly described by an OpenAPI document. So definitely the best way to integrate within the Power Platform. As far as how do we generate these OpenAPI documents, probably the most popular way is Swashbuckle to generate that from your ASP.NET Core web apps. It generates the OpenAPI doc on the fly. It includes everything you need, like the API endpoint details, payload structures, and security requirements and all of that. So why use these OpenAPI documents and OpenAPI for custom connectors? Well, it removes dependencies and it increases agility. So it kind of decouples everything. So how it would look on the back end, you have your Power App, you have the custom connector, which is what the Power App uses to talk to the service. That custom connector talks to your OpenAPI document, which is decoupled from your web API itself. Okay, so cool. We talked a lot about connectors. Now it's probably best just demo this and see how we actually integrate with a custom connector inside of a Power App. So to show this, I have an OpenAPI here, and you can see all the different actions that I have here as far as being able to pull up information about plants. So this is a farm management API. I want to be able to store information about the different plants that we have and track their inventory. So kind of a common use case in inventory management type system and API. So you can see the Swagger, or sorry, the OpenAPI file here. Now, how do we get this inside of our Power App? So one of the ways we can do that is by going back to that make.powerapps.com portal and clicking on the custom connectors option. And you see here on the new custom connector tab, these are those options where we can either import from an OpenAPI file or from a URL. So you'll just point that to the URL file and it'll take you through the process. And you see I already have a custom connector here, and I'll just show you what it looks like behind the scenes. So you'll define some information about where your host is, the security layer, and then the definition is really where everything is. When you import it, it will just automatically set all this stuff for you from your OpenAPI file. But this is, if you need to make any tweaks or anything like that, we can override some settings and stuff and the different actions or the different endpoints that we're calling here for our API. So it's really as simple as that. You have your different actions. It has built-in testing and even a Swagger editor that will open up the Swagger file itself so that you can see what's going on. You can test and update. And if I want to consume this in my application, I have another application for plant management open up here. All I have to do to use my API is click on our data tab inside of Power Apps, go to add data, and we can use the search and search for the name of our connector, which is this SPF Farms API. So I went in there, I've added that in. So now I can start using this inside of my application. So that's all a citizen dev has to worry about. They don't have to know the ins and outs of the API. All they have to know is, oh, there's that connector, add it into my app. Now I can start using it. So if I wanted to, say, be able to search different plants, I can go to my Find a Plant screen, and I'll have just a text box where I can type in something to search. And on my search button, I'm going to use a local collection with Power Apps, and I'm going to call my API. And I'm going to call my API plant method. I'm going to pass it in what I want to search for, which is the genus type of whatever I have in my text box there on the screen. And that's going to add all of my results that I return there in a local collection. And I have this gallery bound to that local collection, so it will display the results. So if we just give this a test here, I'm going to search for this type of genus of a plant. That's growing behind the scenes. It's calling my API, and it returned the results. I can see there's one result, and just so you can see that it works, I can search for one more different type. And now you see I have 124 results. And you see it's pretty fast as well. It's even returning things like images from the API, or I can see the plant name and what type of plant it is. So it's really that simple from an end user standpoint to securely and seamlessly integrate with your API. We can do things like returning that. We can also do things like searching for a particular SKU. So kind of similar setup. The search button is pointing to a separate endpoint. So when I do the search, I'm calling the SKU endpoint, and I'm going to pass it in whatever is in that text box and search for a specific SKU and be able to determine what inventory I have on hand. Now, what can make this really cool is this can be used in an inventory management situation, because one of the controls that we have in here is a barcode scanner. So you could have a Power App with a native barcode scanner control that will just scan that barcode with the SKU and be able to automatically return back the details of that inventory in there. So that's really how easy it is to integrate there with an API. Okay. Now, when we talk about custom connectors and the different ones that we can use here, I just showed you integrating with an OpenAPI document. But the other way that we can leverage custom connectors in Power Apps and the Power Platform is with Azure API Management. So I thought I'd just show a little bit about where you might use each method, whether an OpenAPI document or Azure API Management. So when it comes to API control, obviously Azure API Management is going to be more centralized, whereas an OpenAPI document is distributed. In the structure layer for Azure API Management, it's going to be more complex, where an OpenAPI document is more simple. So when it comes to basically having a centralized location, extra security layers, extra usage control, and all of that, Azure API Management has a lot of benefits. Of course, being in Azure there, it's a little bit maybe additional cost and additional architectural complexity. So those are the key differences there. And how this would look maybe from a flow standpoint, of an architecture standpoint, you would have a Power Apps application. The custom connector would talk to Azure API Management, which is talking to your web API, and that's talking to your internal and external services. So to kind of sum up some of the benefits of why you might consider using Azure API Management to host your connector rather than just doing what I showed in that demo there and pointing to an OpenAPI document directly, is giving you the control and the ability to administer your web APIs from a central place. It's a big benefit. And also being able to set policies to enable you to expose your specific APIs publicly while maybe excluding others. And then, of course, functionality built into Visual Studio to export your APIs and just a more seamless experience. Being able to export these APIs is super simple. So actually, let me just skip right to that. We're at Azure API Management now. We have two APIs. We have employees and HR. If I want to have a custom connector, all I have to do is say export. There's an option for Power Apps and Power Automate. I click that. I give it a name, click export. And that's all I have to do. I didn't have to worry about configuring anything, going into that make.powerapps.com. And now here in Power Apps, my endpoint there and my API is ready to use. And what we're seeing here is actually the Dataverse routines I was talking about. And here's another big reason that I really wanted to focus on why you would use Azure API Management to host your connector. And that is if you're wanting to utilize Dataverse for Teams to host your application, which allows you to use Power Apps to create an application with inside of Microsoft Teams, is because it's free and it's included in the licensing. So you can connect to Azure API Management all day inside of a Dataverse for Teams hosted Power App. So it gives you free extensibility. It's really, really awesome. Okay, and then lastly, so we've talked about custom connectors and why you might use them, the different ways, whether with OpenAPI document or with Azure API Management. Now, where does Azure Functions really come into play with this? Well, as we know, we can use Azure Functions to create serverless APIs. Big benefits of this being they're easy to implement thanks to the HTTP trigger. They're configurable with authorization, your HTTP methods and routes, and they're great for like single APIs. If you just have an endpoint where maybe you want to be able to upload an image to, post an image to, and have that go convert it to the base 64 image and upload it to Azure Blob Storage, or some kind of simple transactional thing like that. Azure Functions are really great for that. And there are a few updates that have been made, which we're going to talk about here a little bit later on the demo section for Visual Studio, that makes that integration with Azure Functions and OpenAPI even that more seamless. Being able to have OpenAPI support added to the HTTP triggered Azure Functions template, Azure API Management import has been added to the publishing experience, and then built-in OpenAPI UI and all that. So, that was a lot of talking. Those are the main benefits of like why you would use Azure Functions to host your APIs, and how custom connectors are used within Power Apps. Now, for Azure API Management, so as I guess I think the Visual Studio update was in March. So if you haven't updated Visual Studio in a while, I believe that was the 16.10 release where these new function updates were added for that. So definitely check that out. And I believe Justin will be talking more about that here in a little bit in the demo.
Wow, that was pretty amazing. Do you need like a drink or a coffee or?
Yeah. Man, all of the above. Yeah.
Sip of water there real quick. I've got a couple of questions we need to filter through and see what we can do here. One of the questions that I saw coming up a number of times that popped up, and I even had the question in my head, was I think the specific question was, what license were you showing as you were going through the first part of the demo? And I know that when you and I first were introduced to each other, that was like licensing. So what are the licensing restrictions around some of the things you showed in the demo?
Yeah, great question. That was definitely one of the things I am most passionate about. So that first demo I showed, where I connected to the Excel spreadsheet and we created the flooring sample, that was all in what we call the seeded license, where that's included if you have your Microsoft 365, like E3 or Business Premium, those type of level SKUs, you get a base version of Power Apps included with that, and you can connect to things like Excel workbooks in SharePoint with that license included. Now, the second one I showed, though, where I did the custom connector generated from an OpenAPI file, that does require an additional Power Apps premium license. And one thing I will say is they just announced discounts on that. So they reduced the licensing cost. So it's $5 per user per month for a single application to license to be able to use the custom connector that way, or $20 for an unlimited amount of applications per user per month to be able to consume that.
Cool. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyways, because the guy who asked the question, Jeremy Sinclair, the Twitter friend of mine, a good question. Will the HTTP connector ever become standard in Power Apps, or is it always a premium one?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, that's fine. I promise Jeremy I'll take it back to the team.
I mean, I would cross my fingers and hope so, but we'll take it back to the team. We'll see.
Fair enough. So Thomas asked the question as well. Is a connector mostly a trigger? And trigger is, it's a term that probably is more common when it comes to functions, where we're waiting for an event to happen or something to trigger an action to happen. So how do you think about the connectors? Because there's, as you showed, the slide was like not even big enough to show all the connectors we have. How do you think about a connector?
Well, I say it's not mostly, kind of, sort of, mostly a trigger. So with the connectors, each one is different. So if we talk about those SaaS connectors that we have to different services, each one has its own different triggers that can kick it off, and it's the different actions. So, one connector, like take SharePoint, for example, that can trigger automatically based off like when something is added. So it can wait for that to happen. Whereas other ones, maybe they can only be triggered manually with some kind of execution, like the button in the Power App I was showing. So it really differs based off of the connector and how it's spelled. Okay.
One of the things that I thought was I want to kind of dive into a little bit, maybe it's not a question, but more of an observation, is when you had the OpenAPI spec, right? We've imported the plants, and I want that API, by the way. I need to get with you later. So I want to use that. And you pulled up the formula bar and you're like, oh, I'm just going to connect it to my API, blah, blah, blah. I want to emphasize the fact that you actually didn't do anything, right? There was no code. It was almost like this is just now a method that's available to me or formula. Like I just typed like my whatever dot, and now the methods are available, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in the dot too, that's one of the things I love about Power Apps, especially from, coming from a ProDev background. It has that like IntelliSense that we're used to. We just do a dot, we figure out what's okay. Here are all the methods that I can call with this API, and here's exactly what I need to pass it in. It's as simple as what we're used to in Visual Studio. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to throw all this at it. I'm still consuming a lot of what you had there. And we're going to jump into a next section of that Nitya, our friend and colleague. She likes to do all these sketch notes, and it's like a hangman thing. So I'm really looking to jump in, and maybe you can help me guess through some of these things. So we will jump into that next. I think Ryan, our lovely producer, is going to throw one up here. So we're supposed to kind of guess what this is. It's kind of a hangman. So people in the chat here, try and figure out what we're trying to guess this particular service. It's really, really fast. So when you pre-built visual controls and components that don't fit your needs, what is this particular tool, right? Oh, you guys have instructions in the chat. All right. Does anybody know what it is? April, you still around? Can you help me? Don't know? I don't even know what it is.
What?
Power Apps. Oh, we get a little clue here.
Oh, yeah, I know. I didn't want to ruin it for anyone, though, in the chat. I know what it is. I was going to give it like a little bit more time.
Does anybody have it in the chat?
PCF. I mean, what are those like things that we built, like widgets almost? What's another word for widgets? I mean,
yeah. So it looks like the developer wants to turn a square into a circle. Like what would we do for something that's custom?
I mean, I'm thinking that's a component in Power Apps. That's what I'm thinking.
That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, Jeremy, our good friend Jeremy just popped in, and so did Douglas and Jay. All right, but Jay got close. Jay said Connect Framework. That's pretty close. Jeremy says Power Apps Component Framework.
Yes,
right,
that's it.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, I think we got time. Do we have time for another one or no? Yes. Yeah. All right, we're getting lots of yeses in our own chain. We got a question. I want to see what this question here is. All right, Douglas, I'll get with you. I'll answer that question here shortly. You can ping me on Twitter, Douglas, for your question about the dev book. Okay, let's go ahead and throw up our next little hangman test. All right, this is a concept. Nitya draws really fast.
I know.
All right, this is all right. How'd you make this? Okay, looks like somebody can go really fast. Do you know any coding languages? Have you heard about Power Apps? All right, this looks like a concept. Concept. I'm going to check our other chat here. I'm going to look up at my other screen here. All right. It's a term to describe the ability to use to build apps using visual interfaces and scripting instead of programming languages. That's a little tricky because you said we could use some.
Yeah, I wouldn't say instead of, but yeah, I did talk about this quite a bit just now. So
I sure did. Looks like, all right, we've got one guess in here. I'm waiting for maybe one more. All right. All right. Geetha and Jay both get it. All right. They said low code. It's a good guess. All right. Let's see here. Answered those. Answered that one. All right. We're good on both of those. All right. What else have we got? I'm looking at our time. Okay. Let's do this. April, I again appreciate you hanging out with and answering these little doodles, right? I don't know what we're supposed to call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my buddy Justin here. And Justin, hey Justin, how's it going?
Hi, I'm Justin.
Everything is good. So this is Justin Yu. He's a senior developer advocate on my team here, and you're on the other side of the world, right? You're over in Korea, right?
Yes, I'm in Korea now.
Super early in the morning for us. And Justin's going to jump in and talk to us about OpenAPI extensions with Azure Functions. And April showed a little bit about Web API, but you've done something fantastic. And I'm going to let you, I'm not going to give away anything, but I'm going to let you kick it off. And we're going to run through your demo. So take it away, Justin.
Sure. Thanks, Shane, and thanks, April, about the great example, great presentation of how we can connect our web API with Power Platform, especially in Power Apps and Power Automate thing. So now I'm going to show how we can leverage our Azure Functions application with OpenAPI Extension, so that we can use Azure Functions for your Power Platform custom connector, right? So throughout in the next half an hour or so, I'm going to show some demos, mostly about the technical demos, how we can build the function application with OpenAPI extensions within Visual Studio without having to then deploy it to Azure without having to leave Visual Studio, right? So let's get into it. So, okay, so this is my Visual Studio for now. So I have nothing at the moment. So, and now make sure you have to, you should have the latest version of Visual Studio, which is 16.10 now. And then I'm going to add a new project here with the OpenAPI, the Azure Functions. Then it says, okay, let's create Azure Functions project. Now, when you have the latest version of Visual Studio, you will be able to see these two things, HTTP trigger and HTTP trigger with OpenAPI. So now I'm going to use HTTP trigger with OpenAPI. So use that, then it will display this HTTP trigger, and then what you can see here is, so you will be able to see these new things starting with OpenAPI thing, right? So this is the core of the OpenAPI extension. So that template has already integrated with OpenAPI extension. So you just simply run this. So what it does behind is, I'm going to show the project definition file here. So when you see that, here is the this extension, the Microsoft.Azure.WebJobs.Extensions.OpenAPI. The current version is still in preview, which is 0.7.2, so which is fine now. So yeah, so with this extension, we can definitely easily integrate with the OpenAPI documents and Swagger UI with your Azure Function extension. With your Azure Function application. So yeah, so I talk too much. So I'm going to just build this application on my local machine. So I didn't do anything, just use the existing one. So now it's building. Then there's something interesting you will be able to see here. So as you can see here, I have only one function, which is function 1, but when I run this application, I have these 4 endpoints, starting with render OpenAPI document, render Swagger document, and render Swagger UI. This comes from the OpenAPI extension. So you don't have to write these things by your hand. So it automatically integrated with your as a function application, right? So I'm going to take this URL with our Swagger UI, then paste it onto my web browser. Then it shows this extension. So this Swagger UI. So this comes from, so see the function app is running. So this comes from the extension. Then if I run this, try the Swagger UI, then you will be able to run TV. Then you will be able to see a message like that. So hello, run TV, which is the Swagger UI is actually running exactly what we expected from what. So you can imagine how the ASP.NET Core Web API uses Swashbuckle. So this is how we can expect from the Azure Functions application, right? So that's the one, and it's easy. Yeah? And then I want to show another thing here. Currently, we use text plain, right? Plain text, I mean, and we return only string type here. But mostly, we are not just return the plain text but we are returning the object, which is JSON object basically. So how can we change it, change this behavior? So we can change this into something more useful. So I'm going to change, I'm going to change this line into different one. And it says the application, its return type is application JSON, and the return type is a response object. But I haven't got the response object yet, so I'm going to create this response object here with this. And here, so I got the response object. Then it contains message. So I'm going to replace this response message with this object. So I change it. I'm going to change this part into this one. So I made some small change with then it returns object instead of a string. So now I'm going to build this function again. Then it will display something different. So it's built again. Now I'm back to the UI side, and as you can see here, there is nothing under the name, the function endpoint. So if I change this value, change this page now, and you will be able to see the response object here, right? And then when you see, when I try this one again, run TV, then it will display OpenAPI, the JSON object, right? Before that, it was just returning the plain text. Now it returns the JSON objects, now, like that. So basically, whatever you build as a function application, it actually automatically reflects your Swagger UI, and even here a Swagger document as well. So this is your Swagger document. Then I will make it bigger. Then basically, as a default value, it will return Swagger version 2, which is OpenAPI version 2, which is formerly known as Swagger. Now, but if you want to see something different, version 3, you can find it, like use a different OpenAPI endpoint, version 3. Then you will be able to see the version 3. Currently, it renders OpenAPI. It uses OpenAPI, the spec of version 3.0.1, right? So then, if you want to render a different way rather than JSON, then you can change it to YAML file here, right? So either way, if you prefer use YAML, if you prefer to using JSON, yeah, you can. That's the perfectly possible. And if you want to use version 3 or version 2 of OpenAPI spec, that's okay. So whatever you want, then you can make it. You can render it, and then you can make use of this the rendered OpenAPI document with your custom connector or with your other API management with other things as well. All right. Now, so let's get back to so that's what we did so far. Right. So yeah, the polls has been there. So the poll question was, have you ever used the Azure Functions extension on your Azure Functions OpenAPI extension before? Then 70% have not been used, and 30% they have. Yeah, which is good. So those 70% have not been using this OpenAPI extension. Please do so. Then you will be able to see the powerful the feature of it enrich your Azure Functions application, right? So now I built the OpenAPI. I built Azure Functions with OpenAPI support. Now how? So let's connect to what April did. April showed us before. So I'm going to deploy this Azure Functions application from Visual Studio. not having to leave Visual Studio, right? So let's do the right-click publish here. Yeah, I know. People don't like the don't like right-click publish, but let's do this for now. So I'm going to choose Azure. Then I'm going to choose the Windows here. Okay. Then there are a bunch of the Azure function app here. So I'm going to use the existing one. You can also create a new function instance here, but I'm going to choose the existing one here. Then, as you can see, I can, at the same time, I can integrate these Azure Functions endpoint with API management. Of course, you can also create a new API, the endpoint, new API management instance, or you can use the existing one like this. So I'm going to use the function app here. Then, yeah, click finish. Then you will be able to see the publish ready. Then I'm going to click the publish one, right? So it takes some time. It takes some time to get the function app ready. So let's wait a few minutes. Then I'm going back to this project again to show how we can leverage the CI/CD pipeline using the GitHub Actions now. So let's wait a few minutes now, maybe a few minutes or a few seconds. So after that, so before in the meantime, I can show another one. So here, so for now, I use the Azure function application with OpenAPI extension. Now this time I'm going to show some sort of the configuration capability of Azure function application. What that means is that so I'm back to this one. So here, these values. So can you see the titles of this document? This title, that's a default value, but you don't within your company, within your organization. I don't think you ever want to use this title. You want to have your specific, the organization specific title you want to use. And also currently, as I said, the default version of the OpenAPI document rendered is version 2, but you want to render OpenAPI version 3 as a default value, right? And also you want to add some contact details and the license details at the bottom, at below of this URL, right? So these kind of things, how can we configure it? So we can actually configure. We are able to configure it, right? So let's add another function. So I have already the function configured here. So I'm going to use function 2 in here. Then it says, oops, what is it? Oh, not this one. So existing, what? So I'm going to add a new project, existing project here. Oops. So I'm going to add existing project here. Then it says, okay, sounds like it's not deployed yet. So I'm going to add. So I'm going to delete this one. So I added the function 2, which contains the OpenAPI configuration options, which is within this class, I declared my own configuration, OpenAPI configuration options by inheriting default OpenAPI configuration options comes from the OpenAPI extension. Then by doing so, I can change all the title here and description here, and terms of service and contact details here, and OpenAPI license here, right? So let's change this value, OpenAPI document Azure functions. So let's change this one. The value is hello run TV. Run TV. So I change this value. Also, I also changed the OpenAPI version to version 3, right? So if I if I change this behavior like that, then you will be able to expect what the Swagger UI, how Swagger UI renders these kind of changes, the changed information. So yeah, so basically the function is deployed. So before that, I'm going to show this one first. So now I'm going to show run this the second function app, then see how it's going. So remember that I changed the title and the OpenAPI document here. Oops, OpenAPI document version. So here, then currently the title is that, and there is no the contact details or license information. Also, it has only it's not the OpenAPI version 3. Now, if I change this one, then it says hello run TV, and it says, yeah, okay, this version is OpenAPI version 3. Then you can see those the custom details like contact details or license details and everything, right? So if I click this Swagger document, then as a default value, it renders the version 3 of OpenAPI document, right? So this is what how we can configure this kind of the configure your the OpenAPI metadata information like this. Okay. Now we have deployed our Azure function application. So let's go back to the Azure, then see how it's going. So yeah, so we have the function app here. Then so as you can see, so function. So remember, I have only one function 1 here. Then the other 4 the endpoints are showing in our local machine like this. Oops, like this, right? But when you deploy this application onto Azure, then those 4 endpoints is encapsulated. So you are not this is hidden from your Azure function application, but it's still working. So it's so we can say this is encapsulated. So when you go to there, and then I will click this URL. Then as a function is working, API Swagger UI, then it will display. It will display this OpenAPI extension, right? And you can see this this OpenAPI the document as well, right? So this is how we can you can see this OpenAPI document and Swagger UI page on your on Azure, and also in here. So let's run this application here. When you try this out, so see what's happening. Run TV, then you will be seeing like a 401 error because the function endpoint is the authentication level is function. So that means we have to provide some security code here, right? In this case, how in this case we need to get the application app key API key here to get this one, then authenticate this endpoint. So by doing so, and authorize this endpoint, then try this time. Then it will display the result, expected result, right? So by doing so, we can the secure your endpoint as well, right? Then so this is how we can use the Azure Functions endpoint directly from on the portal. Then let's get back to the API management because we have already integrated our Azure Functions endpoint into the API management side. So we have the Azure Functions OpenAPI here. Then we have the run get method here, right? It will return the same result. But before that, we need to see some sort of security setting here. So we are using the API key through query parameter. So let's get code and then put add value here, and I just copied this one. So API key, then it's saved. Now when we go to the test one, then put in here awesome run TV, then it will display the result. So it's turned okay, then hello awesome run TV. So which is our API management is perfectly integrated with our Azure functions with OpenAPI extension without any. So I didn't do anything but publish this application from Visual Studio. So it's automatically done for you. And also, as April showed, so we can export the Power Platform, the custom connector by clicking the export button or directly from here, create Power Connector, right? So we can use that. So this is how we can leverage our endpoint. Now, let's get back to here. So I showed you how we can use this application. Now, so if I want to what should I do? Okay, sorry. So I'm going to close this, and if I integrate this application into my GitHub repository, so I'm just run TV ABCD. Okay. So I just use the repository name as run TV ABCD and create and push here. Then so I have my GitHub repository ready. Then I can click the push. Okay. Then I change something here. Where is it? Okay. So if I change something, then make some change and commit at here, then push this time again. Then so my GitHub repository is ready. So what I'm going to try now is that I'm going to create a new one with a different approach. So click this one, then so here this time you will be able to see this document deployment type. This will actually lead you to use GitHub Actions. So I'm going to show that. Here, API Management, and here I choose the existing one. Then here, so currently I'm using the zip deploy, right? Now we can change this behavior into different one, GitHub Actions. So I choose the GitHub Actions, then it will automatically create GitHub Actions workflow within your repository. So it creates that. Then when it is created, it automatically creates it adds some secret on your GitHub repository with the function publish profile and service principal as well. And these are all workflow you are going to see. So I'm going to commit all the changes on my local, then push it to my GitHub repository. Then, so it is now pushed. So let's go to my GitHub repository. Here, as you can see, I just created GitHub run TV ABCD. Then here, run TV ABCD here. Then you will be able to see the GitHub Actions is actually running. So once you are done, once you get all the workflow is done, and you will be able to deploy your function application and the API management integration within the GitHub Actions. So now you can leverage it to use the CI/CD the capability within Visual Studio, right? So I'm leaving this for now because it takes time. Now let's get back to so what else? Okay, so let's do this one. So let's get back to here. So what I'm going to show for now is that so we are using the functions application here, and I'm going to change some configurations. So what I'm trying to achieve is that I want to secure. So what I want to secure OpenAPI document endpoint. What that means is that currently these endpoints are all anonymous. So it allows anonymous access. But sometimes we want to expose this OpenAPI document within the organization. Only for people have the access key, right? In that case, how we can leverage it? So in this case, we can change some behavior from this by changing the environment variables here. So I'm going to add OpenAPI document label. So I'm going to add the label. So OpenAPI authentication label for the document. So here, so as I said, I'm going to use this the authentication label as function. Currently, it's anonymous, so I'm going to change this behavior to a function. So I'm changing it, and also I'm going to add the OpenAPI API key here. So I change it. Now, so it's changed. Then when I try to render this endpoint, so you will be able to see some differences. So when I try to render this application, it says, okay, 401 error, because we just secured this endpoint by accessing the function level. So we need to provide which one? The API keys here. We need to provide the API key to Azure Functions here, like code. Then you will be able to see this document, right? So by doing so, you can safely secure your OpenAPI document, the endpoint to render OpenAPI document for others to use. All right. So this is one thing, and also what I want to show is that I changed this behavior. All right. So now I'm going to delete this value for now. I'm going to change this value for now. So, oops. Did I change it? Okay. Did I delete it? Okay, I deleted. So if I change this value, then you will be able to see. So now without this the access code and oops. You will be able to see the OpenAPI documents now. Oops, yeah, here we go, right? Then what I want to show is that now we have secured our OpenAPI document endpoint. But sometimes for the Swagger UI page itself, when you develop the OpenAPI and the Azure Functions application with OpenAPI enabled, then Swagger UI, this page can be only shown on your local machine or some sort of development instance, not for production level, right? So if your Azure Functions application instance is for your production level, sometimes your organization might have a decision to hide Swagger UI from others to access, right? In that case, how can we do it? So we can also set up this configuration within the environment variable as well. So how can we do it? In here, so there is a configuration variable here. So I'm going to add another one. So with hide Swagger UI, then here the default value is false. So if I change this value into true, then it will save and then see how it's going. So it's updated now. So let's go back to the Swagger UI. then if I refresh this page and see, you will be expected to see something. Oops, this error, because this is 404 error, because I just hid it, right? So you are not able to see this Swagger UI, but you still able to see this Swagger document as well, right? So only you can hide this Swagger UI page. So if I change this value, if I delete this environment variable, then you will be able to see, oops, yeah, it's refreshing. So you will be able to see the Swagger UI back to your instance, right? So see how it's going. So now, okay. So the last thing I have, so one last thing. So if you want to change some UI customization, what that means is here. So see some the colors here. So if your organization want to change some colors or styles or some sort of behavior, then you can add some custom CSS and custom JavaScript file. In that case, how what we can do here is that I'm going to add another project here. So I'm going to add another project called the custom UI options. So if I change if I have the custom UI options, then you will be able to see some differences. Then by doing so, what we can do is I add the custom CSS of the change in the color. I add the custom JavaScript file to show the console log here. So let's run this application on my local machine. Then see how it's going. So yeah, so let's get yeah, this is the last thing I can show you. So let's wait for another minute. Is it ever running? Okay, so let me just close it again. Then see how it's running. Oops. Is it ever running? Okay. Now it is running. And so when I change it, so when your local machine is here, so currently it shows black, but if I run this application, it changes the UI, something like this. And also, if I open the console log here, when I refresh this the UI, then you will be able to see this the console log here. So by doing so, I just showed a simple example, but you will be you can change your all the styling and with some sort of default behavior of Swagger UI page by providing the custom CSS and the custom JavaScript file. So yeah, so that's it. That's the end of my demo. Whew, it was long.
All right, great job. That was a lot. That was a lot to fit in there. And you're at the mercy of Azure as well. So appreciate it, Justin. We're going to bring Justin back with April here in a minute while everybody kind of takes a 30-second break or so and gets a drink, and then we'll do ask the experts. So please throw your questions in the chat, and we'll have a quick round of just question and answer real fast. So Ryan, you got something to throw up for us real quick? Oh, it's a hangman. Quick, can you guess the concept? What do we got? I don't know. A lot of pictures, a lot of drawing. Organizations, technology. You spell organization differently. I saw that. That looks like Satya down in the corner. Let me check our chat. Does anybody know what this is? While we're waiting on people to guess, Jay has a question. Do you have a GitHub repo for your examples, for your samples you can share, Justin? Maybe tweet it out.
Yes, I can show it. Currently, it's on private now, so I will okay, I will make it public.
Okay.
Right after that.
No worries.
So now okay, so my screen is not ready, so I'm going to make it public.
All right.
right now.
I don't see anybody throwing in the answers. The answer to this one is tech intensity. It's something that Satya talks about a lot. Tech intensity would be the answer there. So, all right. So I think we're good. We're right at time. I think let's go ahead and throw up the next little thing here, and we're gonna go ahead and move into our Ask the Experts after this. This is a kind of 30 panel illustration, and we can make this available online, but this is a visual guide to our Fusion development path. So please visit the AKA link at the bottom to Fusion Dev Path. We have a whole Microsoft Learn path on doing Power Apps with API development and also connecting using the OpenAPI spec. A lot of what we saw today and a little bit more. So check out that link, and the link is also in the chat. And we will see you in a minute or so, and we'll get everybody up here and go through some of the questions. So if you have questions that we haven't answered, looks like Matt Sokup actually got the answer. I think, Matt, you're cheating a little bit. You answered after I gave the answer. If you have some questions, throw them in the chat, and let's bring April back in if April hasn't run away from us. And oh, look, she's here.
I'm still here.
She was going to run away here. So great stuff, everyone. I really appreciate you going through all of the demos. I'm still trying to consume a lot. April, what you threw up there with all the things you're doing, and it's amazing on what you can do with no code, right? Just being able to hit the dots and stuff there. I got a couple of questions that are still hanging around, Justin, from your demo that I didn't get a chance to answer. And I don't know the answer to this one, so I'm going to ask you. The template that we put together for adding the OpenAPI spec to the Azure function, I know it's available in Visual Studio. I can't remember if it's in the CLI or not, the Azure Function CLI. And on addition to that, this is a two-parter. How about Visual Studio for Mac? Did we check that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Currently, the Visual Studio 2022. What is it? 2022.
2022.
Yeah, 2022 is on the way, but
okay.
I'm hoping that will be included in there, but I can't answer that for now.
Yeah. Okay. So Derek, we'll check on that. Those templates all work on the same templating back end. So we'll make sure that we'll get it all in there. It's in preview right now. So by the time it goes GA towards the end of the year, right around .NET 6 time, we'll be sure that we check all that stuff in there. Interesting question just popped up from Thomas here. In April, I think this one's for you. It says, what is the Microsoft definition of citizen?
I don't know if Microsoft has a specific definition. I'll just say what I consider a citizen. I like to say low code dev instead of citizen developer myself, but it's just someone maybe not with a traditional programming language background, but that uses productivity tools like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, and stuff like that, building applications with low code tools. That's what I define it as. Yeah,
I think it's a good definition. That's fine. So we talk about citizen developer and pro developer, and this word fusion that has been defined out there is those two personas coming together to come up with these types of solutions, right? So I think that we're going to start hearing those more. You threw some numbers out there, and I don't want to try and repeat them, but they're in the high percentages of those types of applications that we're going to see in those tech teams coming together to create that solution. One of the things that I used to do a talk a long time ago about exposing your business applications, to the web, right? So when I think about API development, I think about I have hardened, systems at my business that are, HR backends and all kinds of things that I can't touch. I'm afraid to touch them because they've been there forever. or they're a third-party vendor, or they might have some APIs. And when I think about my API development and writing stuff that sits on top of that and then exposing it so that people can write web applications and stuff like that, I see this as a perfect fit for things like Power Apps. Like I need a timesheet, or I need I don't know, whatever for my business. So some kind of vacation application, right? So April, I know you've dealt a lot with customers, and are these the types of solutions that you're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. Just that integration with, whether it's, your HR systems and stuff like that for managing time off. It's probably the most common integration point that I see hands down is with custom connectors and integrating with APIs like that for a lot of those common solutions, whether it's departmental or enterprise solutions like handling time management, managing timesheets, and just different use cases like that.
Sure. Justin, a question came in, and I'll try and pronounce the name. It's Syed, maybe. This had asked, what should we use OpenAPI, or why should we use OpenAPI if we can achieve the same with Azure Functions API? And I'm going to jump in a little bit and maybe try and add some additional information here. I know that we can take an Azure Functions app and import that into APIM, or I can just use the endpoint itself. Why would I want to use OpenAPI if I can get the same thing out of just a regular endpoint? Why would I want to use an OpenAPI spec?
So OpenAPI spec, as far as I can say now, is OpenAPI specification is just the contract definition between the API producer and API consumer. So without the spec, without contract details, say a front-end application developer. So front-end application developer cannot build their application without the API, without API communication. But if you have OpenAPI document, OpenAPI specification for your backend API, even if it's not functioning at all, but then still the front-end application developer or Power Apps developer can build their application without having to rely on the backend API. So definitely you can use as a functions API by itself. But if we use OpenAPI, as April mentioned in her session before, so it decouples your actual implementation and the specification so that you can use it.
Yeah, and I think, April, you've probably been into businesses where they go, hey, we have all these APIs in the back, and you go, well, what do you have? And they go, oh yeah, there's 5 endpoints, and you go, okay, well, what does this thing do? And it's got like some descriptor method like that. And I think if we had an open API spec, that you just, in your example, you hit dot, right? Get products, and like they just have to tell you the methods, and then you can kind of see the data description come back. Like, what I'm dealing with, and I'm really just matching properties, to the boxes and fields and things like that on the actual app. It's a lot easier to deal with that. And I hate to kind of throw an old term out there, but I used to run a team and we did all front page, right? It was all just drag and drop. And, this is like, for me, I'm like, this is cool, right? This is so easy for us to do it, right? So I think it's, when I look at that question, and I think, why use OpenAPI spec? First off, when you use this OpenAPI spec with the tools that are out there, with things like Swagger UI, it gives me a test harness, right? I can just test it right there in the web. I don't have to write a test app that might also break and hurt my production velocity there. But also just importing an API, web API or function API into APIM, it fills in all the boxes. And April, you kind of went through it fast, right? There's like 4 or 5 tabs up there. If I just say, I want to import an API from something, and it's going to ask you, what's the name? What's the method? What's the type? And you have to type in all that stuff if you don't have an OpenAPI spec, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest reason why is, well, if you want to integrate it with Power Platform, that's really, you need an OpenAPI spec one way or the other to do it. So if you want to have that low-code integration, it's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
For those who wants to see my demo GitHub repository, then
Okay.
so you will be able to see this GitHub repository. So see that? Yeah.
Look at that. Look at you ask and you receive. So there's the GitHub repo. Check out that. All of Justin's awesome code that you can go and check out. And please check out the book the learning path that we put up before as well. And again, keep your questions coming. And yeah, Thomas, you made a good point. It has automatic UI for the experiments or testing. I'm kind of scanning through, looking for some other questions that I may have missed. Scanning.
I saw a good one a while back from Andreas that I did want to touch on in case, because I know I glanced over this really fast in mine. But they thought they read something about Azure API Management Connector being available for Microsoft Teams for citizen developers. So I did want to touch on that. That is that Dataverse for Teams, which is giving us the ability to create a Power App inside Microsoft Teams to be used in Teams. And yeah, if you're using Azure API Management, that connector is available in Dataverse for Teams Power Apps for free. So that was that article probably that they were mentioning there, announcing that for free, we can leverage Azure API Management all we want in our Dataverse for Teams Power Apps.
Cool. All right, so there's a question here too, maybe a little M365. I think this is around, looks like it was right around April, right around your demo. Something about Graph API using API Gateway internally. Do you see a lot of Power Apps using Graph API or M365, in some of their experience and maybe some of the challenges around that?
Definitely lots of M365. I believe still the most utilized connector is the SharePoint connector. So that is by far the primary data source that most people are using still for Power Apps-based applications. As far as the graph, I do see a lot of integrations. Now, the thing with that is there's not a native graph connector like with all those connectors we have. So if we do want to connect to the graph, we are having to use like the HTTP trigger or something, or a custom connector, which is why a good use case for a custom connector that we see, creating that to be able to make those graph calls natively in your Power Apps and your Power Automate flows.
Cool. Have you we talked about the licenses earlier, as Justin was presenting it, I seem to remember us announcing a developer license or some new license at Build. Do you recall what that license was or what the dynamics were around that?
Off the top of my head, no. I know with like your Visual Studio Enterprise, like you get a license for Power Apps to be able to test and dev Power Apps on now the URL.
I believe that was the one, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it or the URL, but yes, that was announced at Build, which is pretty cool because that was a big ask for a while, right? Is how can we help pro devs be able to more seamlessly create Power Apps and test that. So the fact that it's included with that Visual Studio Enterprise license is cool.
Yeah. What
so during the build, there was an announcement that they called Power Apps Developer Plan. So we can use that. It used to be a Power Apps Community Plan, and now it changes the name to Developer Plan. Then with a lot more features and more capability, so that you can build Power Apps and Power Automate within that.
Yeah, that was actually that was another announcement. So there was for the Visual Studio one, but then there was the Power Apps Dev. So the community plan, as Justin said, has been around for a while. But one of the key things that they're going to be adding for this dev plan is the ability to have multiple environments. So if you've used the Power Platform before, environments are kind of logical security boundaries, and we often use those for like our dev, test, and prod for the solutions that we build. So the ability that they're adding to have multiple environments is actually pretty huge, because that means now we can test out our application lifecycle management in the dev plan, which we couldn't do previously because it was limited to one environment.
I was thinking about testing, right? So although most developers don't think about testing, I was actually thinking about it. And I know with the Swagger UI, it gives us a good ability to test, the API backends. And I know that using Power App Studio, I can F5 it or hit the play button and kind of test my app and things like that. Are there any good tools for testing Power Apps kind of in mass, like actually running through a bunch of tests to run through a scenario or a flow?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the great things about Power Apps. We have Power Apps Monitor to do like a debugging session, and we can invite and share that with other people to do live real-time collaborative debugging. We also have Test, which is still experimental right now, I believe in preview, but it's basically where we can do unit tests for our Power Apps. So that's baked into there. And then when we talk about taking it further with the solutioning mechanism, so if we're building something that might consist of a Canvas application, a model-driven app, and say a Power Automate flow, and you package that into a solution, we have built-in testing for the entire solutions as well to make sure there's no dependency issues and things like that.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, both of you, I appreciate you taking the couple of hours that we've put together here, both demos and great talks. I'm going to go back and kind of rewatch both at least pieces and parts of them that I think I kind of glazed over a couple of parts there. So I'm going to have our wonderful producer who's helped us out and hung out with us for a couple of hours throw up a couple of Niche's wonderful little doodles here and see if we can guess together what these might be. And folks in the chat, see if you can figure out what this is. Again, we've got some very fast drawings. Again, check out I got to actually squint in. I don't have my nighttime glasses on tonight, so
I can't keep up.
That's so fast. This is a service.
I know what it is.
I don't know if you can play along, April, anymore here. So, what if I can use formulas? I know what this one is now. I don't know. Justin, do you know what it is?
I might able to answer that. Can I answer that? No.
I almost said power flow, but there's not enough letters. That's something else that's there. Oh, all right. I'm going to wait. In the meantime, Haley, thank you, Haley, for sharing that plan. So Haley shared the link to the Power Apps dev plan in the chat. So check that out. That's the one we were trying to guess. I should have known Haley was there hanging out for us. All right. Looks like that's Power FX. And Douglas wins. Way to go. You win the virtual high five. Way to go.
Ooh, cool.
Okay. I think we got one more. All right. It's another service, bigger boxes. We have a Power App. We've got a Web API. This doesn't look right. How can you interface them? Justin, this might be on you, buddy. Problem solved. I just built my own.
Yep. I think I know this one too.
You think you know? We're not getting any cheat letters. Where's my cheat letters?
That's what I know.
Connect Power Apps to an external service. But what if I have? Whoa! It went away.
Oh no!
What happened? Oh, there we go.
go. So I love that answer.
You love that answer.
We have talked a lot about this answer today.
Yeah, we did. All right. I'm gonna
see
wait.
If maybe Douglas can get 2 in a row there.
Thomas, you're pretty close. I give you that. API Gateway is not the correct answer, but it's pretty close.
That is that is one way to do this.
I would say that's a way to do it. In our friends, Jeremy and Douglas both got it. Douglas, you've been on point tonight, buddy. Custom connector is the correct one. And that's going to shut us down for the evening or morning for you, Justin. I want to mention just one more time and be repetitive. Look, check out the links in the chat to the learning path, the ebook. Thank you, Haley, again for sharing the link to the dev plan. And we've got more events coming up on Learn TV around similar things where you can join. And we hope you can take the time, your morning, evening, afternoon, to hang out with folks like us and other experts in the areas that you're interested in. So, folks, thanks again, April, Justin. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, and I will see you again on the internet. Good night.
you.